If you are looking to move forward in your life towards your authentic dreams without sacrificing your emotional health, your nervous system, your relationships, or your spiritual health, well, you are in good company. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Courtney Lancaster, and this is a safe space for creatives. This is the Heal Create podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Heal Create podcast. I haven't done a solo episode in a while, and I wanted to connect with you guys about a theme that I myself am thinking a lot about, and it's coming up a lot in different sessions that I'm doing with clients as well and with friends, and especially my feminine clients and friends. I think something that I've been very passionate about is embodied femininity. And if you heard my podcast last week with Rebecca, we talk all about it, and the response has been really exciting. I am really excited for how much it resonates with you guys. And, you know, it's kind of like anything when you start to focus on something and get really into a topic, you feel like you see it everywhere, which is a fun fact, your reticular activating system at work, the part of your brain that looks for patterns. But it does feel like, oh my gosh, are we all talking about this? But it's really just because I myself am super pumped on it, and I have been for a few years. I think ever since my husband and I started marriage coaching, which again, that was also a podcast episode a few episodes ago with Bobby and Brandy. We I interviewed them. They were our marriage coaches, and they really taught us the value of polarity. If that's something that you choose to engage in and learn about, the differences between masculinity and femininity and how they balance each other out. And so in my own journey since then, I've been really reading a ton and thinking and journaling and researching, what does embodied femininity mean? And I have been guided by my own desire. Truly, I've been really, it is something that totally lights me up since I was a little girl, wanting to be, this is not like the only way to be inspired by the feminine, but I've been always just inspired by Disney princesses and girly girl stuff. And even I remember in my late teens when Pirates of the Caribbean came out, and Keira Knightley's character, I just remember being so lit up by how powerful and how beautiful she was. And that might all seem really silly, even, like Disney princesses. Obviously, they screwed us over in a lot of ways. A lot of really unhealthy narratives can come from princess stories growing up, from binging on those. But I also believe in trusting what lights you up. I believe in paying attention to what you pretend to be, especially looking back in your childhood and doing a childhood inventory, which actually is part of my Heal Create course. For those of you guys that have it, you'll notice, you'll know that there's a whole section on doing an inventory of your childhood, of what books were you into? What movies were you into? Who did you pretend to be? What was exciting, and who did you pay attention to? And nobody knows that they're doing it. It's just kind of this natural thing that happens. And I think the innocence of childhood is the best time to really pay attention to that, because we weren't yet fully socially conditioned to want anything. We just kind of more naturally wanted what we wanted. The earlier back in childhood that we go. So anyways, for me, a very, very deep value of mine is and has always been femininity, but, healthy femininity, embodied femininity, not like the striving to fit into cultural ideals, but to really embody the essence of the feminine that holds, beauty and expresses emotion and is nurturing and receptive, creative, and also deeply powerful. I mean, women in soil, the only things that bring life into the world, just incredibly, incredibly powerful, and also in flow. And I can't get enough. I love learning about it. And so one of the things that comes up a lot in learning about femininity is this idea of rest. And of course, if you are a guy and you're listening to this, welcome. This pertains to you too. And it also, it's good for men to learn about women and vice versa. But this idea of rest isn't necessarily just for the feminine, but it's more been the how I have found myself really studying and focusing on this particular topic. And what I want to say about rest, I think I have already decided I've titled this podcast episode Permission to Rest, is I think that it gets very confusing what rest actually is, especially when you learn about polyvagal theory, when you learn that like a survival tactic, a self-protective state is shutdown, which can feel very much like absolute complete exhaustion and can feel like I just need to take a nap right now, right in the middle of the day. And or like I just can't get out of bed. Like depression is exhausting and it can be confusing. Like, well, what is the difference between, depression and needing to rest more, being in a season of rest? Because what's also confusing is that when you come out of a season of crisis or a season of anxiety and you resolve old traumas, you will find yourself more tired, almost as if your body is saying, finally, finally, I can rest, finally. And that can be really frustrating to creatives who have just discovered their dreams and are like, let's freaking go. So if that's you, and if you are feeling confused about what rest actually is, you're feeling like maybe you're craving more rest, but you're also not wanting to lose momentum, then I just want to talk a little bit about maybe how to think about it and how to integrate it into your daily patterns and rhythms. So the reason why rest matters is because biologically, our nervous system needs time in that rest and digest phase to heal and to integrate and to expand capacity. We're big Inside Out fans in our family. My son just watched the first video today, like right after school. He was like, "Can I watch Inside Out?" for like the 37th time. And when she goes to sleep at the end of the night, that's when all of the memories download into subconscious. And obviously, it's a way more complicated process, but it is true. Like, this is when the brain cleans itself, basically. And all of the things that we've experienced throughout the day, they get, reintegrated into the parts of the brain that can like file old memories, and all of the new things that we learned become deeper neural pathways. And it's just a way that we it's hygienically, like if you think about like sleep hygiene is like your body resetting itself, your nervous system resetting itself, and then creating capacity for you to grow and expand and learn and experience new memories, the next day or after your rest. Creatively, and this might take a bit of trust and surrender, rest is where ideas like percolate. It's where you need to take a break from thinking about the ideas, but your brain in some ways is never taking a break. Your spirit certainly is never taking a break. Your soul isn't taking a break. And it's all when we are in over action, overproduction mode, when we are in that state where we are just constantly going and going and going, and a lot of our creativity comes from more of a fight or flight state, which is a fine line. When you're excited about something, it's hard to stop doing it. But sometimes, a lot of times, we need rest in order for like the better ideas to come through. That is, breaks lead to breakthroughs. Taking a break from the action, from the momentum, from the constantly thinking about what you're trying to do, is so often how we get those like moments of clarity. Spiritually, rest is an act of surrender. It says, I believe something bigger is holding me, and I do not have to try or fight for it. And of course, we know, if you're here, healthy spirituality is fundamental for healthy creativity, for anybody looking to move forward and build whatever they're trying to build. A connection to something greater than you is essential. And rest emotionally is actually how we repair our sense of worth, our deep sense of value. When we rest without like earning it, or without being finished with the project or finished with the thing, which for most of you, and I hope that you've made this jump, we are rarely working on just one project. It's a life that we are designing, and that is not going to be done until we're done breathing and living. And so to think that we have to be finished in order to rest is obviously hugely detrimental. And it's a subconscious belief even of mine that I notice. But it's detrimental because we are not finished. We're not ever finished creating. And when we rest, we are repairing our sense of worth, because resting without earning it says, I'm valuable simply because I exist, which is the essential foundation to go from when you're building anything. Rest is not avoidance. It is sacred, and it is like the foundation of trust. So healing and integrating and becoming comes when we reverse the idea that we are only safe resting after we've proven ourselves. Rest is how we practice being loved before doing. There are so many times in my own life that I notice my own confusion around this topic, because I was depressed, because in my early 30s, depression was so much, probably mid 30s, was so much a part of my life. I was constantly tired. And the interesting thing about that is that even if you look at if you look at the autonomic ladder, or you're aware of polyvagal theory, which explains how we go into these self-protective states of depression, it actually takes more energy to be in depression than it does to be in fight or flight, which is why we're so tired all the time. Depression is your, shutdown dorsal is your body saying, okay, the lion's coming and clearly I can't run from it. So I'm just going to totally shut you down. And because if the lion sees that you're like, this is your nervous system speaking to you. If your nervous system is basically like, let's totally shut you down and numb you out so that if the lion eats you, maybe you won't feel it. Or maybe the lion will pass you by because it thinks you're dead. That's that feeling of just absolute drained, no energy at all. And what's, so crazy about that is that when you're in that depression state, your body kind of has to siphon energy from all of the systems of your body in order to maintain that that level of self-protection. And that's why it's so draining. So when I resolved a lot of the things that made my body go into that deep dorsal depression state, which took one-on-one support, and it took a couple years of somatic experiencing therapy and understanding my nervous system. And I mean, all kinds, coming at it from different angles, obviously, all kinds of different healing modalities as I went on that journey of trauma resolution. What happened was I went up my ladder, and you can listen to the episode. I feel like I point to this episode almost every single time that I record. But if you go to my polyvagal episode, or you just Google the autonomic ladder, or even just chat GPT, a quick summary of it, you'll know that when you come up out of depression, you actually come up into fight or flight. Like that is how you get back up to your safe zone, because the autonomic ladder, it is a ladder. It has 3 rungs, and the bottom rung is depression, is shutdown, dorsal vagal. The middle rung is fight or flight, anxiety, and then the top rung is your safe and social state. And there's a wide range of experiences within each of those rungs, and there are some blended states as well. But basically, you come back up towards your safe and social state, and you go back from depression into your fight or flight. And so I noticed that for me, I was in a long season that I've been resolving for a while, for the last few years, of being so glad that I wasn't depressed anymore, that I was just constantly burning myself out with honestly, excitement. And frustration, because I was just like, oh, I do not want to go backwards, which is another thing too to mention. Like a lot of us that have been depressed, rest is really hard because it's kind of triggering. We're like, I never want to go back to that feeling of depression. And I think it takes a rebuilding of your relationship with rest in order to trust it enough to practice it. And that is something that I think you can retrain your brain around. You can know, and even integrating like little bits of rest throughout the day. Even like scheduling it on your calendar throughout the week is essential to rebuilding your relationship with rest. So the other flip side of that coin are the people that I notice that they do have big dreams, they have big visions, and they are a little too reliant or protective or attached to their rest and their not moving too fast and their inaction. And because they're afraid to burn out. And so obviously there's a balance here too, right? Like vision and aligned action are essential. I want you to have a vision. I want you to take small steps towards that every single day. But integrating rest into your daily and weekly practices is not abandoning your dreams. It is teaching yourself, your nervous system, your heart that you are valuable simply because you exist, which is the most emotionally sustainable foundation for you to create the life that you desire. And so we do not want our dreams to cost our nervous systems. The safety of our nervous systems. Those dreams are not sustainable. But I think that you need to know that if you are relying too heavily on rest, if you are relying too heavily on like, oh, I'm just laying low a lot. Like I don't want to push it. Like that's just too much for me. It's too much for me. I want you to think about something Ruby Rose Fox talks about, which is daring to dysregulate. And daring to dysregulate means I know that the aligned action that I want to take is going to cost me some energy. It's going to cause a little bit of fear in my system. I know that. And so I'm going to plan a rest after that. But I am going to take this step anyways, knowing it's going to cause a little bit of chaos, because that's how you increase your capacity. When you do something hard, even a little bit hard, every single day, and you survive it, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I did that thing. That is how you increase your capacity to make bigger things normal. And that's something I want to stress is that Sarah Baldwin always talks about this too. She's like, 5 years ago, if I would have imagined the life that I have today, I would have been completely overwhelmed by it. And I can say the exact same thing. I'm like, man, there are so many things that I'm managing that just feel normal to me because I've been able to take small steps towards it. Not that there's not a lot of up in the air and a lot of, struggle in figuring things out. But when you're stretching your capacity to hold this big life that you dream about, you want to take a step forward. And then you want to relax and rest into being held, into knowing that you're enough, even if nothing works out, into knowing that you are safe to do hard things and it's safe to take a break from that as well. And so it's this balance of aligned action and rest. I want you guys to think about resting without guilt. So redefining rest is like, it's not a reward that you have to earn. It's a rhythm. It's something to integrate into your day. And if you are into inner child work, which obviously, I highly recommend, I don't think you can get around it. You have to let your inner child feel safe doing nothing. Like we're just here, we're just chilling. And that doesn't mean numbing out. It doesn't mean, oh, let's just eat whatever we want and watch whatever we want and just completely like, we don't have to do hard things. Like I've already said, but it does mean conscious, like you can eat delicious things and you can watch TV, but there's a difference between consciously doing it and numbing out. And that might look like taking smaller, like doing things for smaller amounts of time instead of just like, oh, I'm just going to go on my phone and then, oh my gosh, it's been an hour. Setting a timer and being like, I'm going to, scroll people that inspire me for 15 minutes. Or my favorite way to rest, part of my daily rhythm, is a meditation. And I'll usually lay down on my bed or sit on my chair and I will do a meditation either of mine from the Heal Create course or from To Be Magnetic. There's an app that has a bunch of different spiritual, like I think Christian spiritual meditations as well. And being able to do that, you are giving your body totally a break. You are refreshing your subconscious. You're kind of in that like brainwave state where you're susceptible to new ideas. And so when you're in that state anyways, giving your brain something to listen to that is pleasant, that's refreshing, that's encouraging, is such a beautiful way to just relax into goodness. For me, it is. My other favorite way that this is a part of my weekly rhythm is, you guys know the touch grass movement, like being out in nature. What I love about being out in nature is that this might sound cheesy, but the trees aren't worried. The trees aren't worried. Nothing is in a rush when you're out in nature. And we are creation just like nature. And we have to remind ourselves that we get to relax and be taken care of just like the sun takes care of the grass and the plants and the trees around you. And for that reason, even if you're like, I don't really connect to this, it's still good for your body. It is still good for you to go out in nature, even if you're like, whatever, like there's no Hulu here. there's no shopping here. Still just going out. There's so way beyond the scope of what I even know or have authority to teach on. There are so many beautiful scientific things that are so good for you about being out in nature. So that's it. You have permission to rest. You can relax. You can take a break. Please start scheduling daily breaks where you do nothing. Maybe you put on just pleasant music and you just lay down on your bed for 20 minutes. I think it's a 22-minute nap. My little sister and I were just talking about this. I made her take a 22-minute nap. She was like, that was magical. I read this article like one time in some glossy magazine that was like, a 22-minute nap is the amount of time that it takes for your neurochemistry to reset or something. I don't even know if that's right. But it like, those things that just stick with you forever, like washing your hair with cold water at the end of your shower is really good for you because we all read that in magazines like 10 years ago. If that's like, what are you talking about? Just let it go. Anyways, the 22-minute nap thing is something I should probably look up and see like what the actual thing is about that. But I swear by it. A 22-minute rest nap where you don't have enough time to fall deeply into sleep, but it's enough time to totally let your body relax is essential. But however you rest, just make sure you schedule it in. And I would love, love, love to hear, please, the ways that you guys, the creative ways that you integrate rest and what makes you feel truly, truly rested. Is it 30-second hugs? Is it playing with your dog? Is it playing with your kids? Is it making dinner? Like what feels restful to you? What resets your nervous system? Please let me know. You can DM me, find me on Instagram, all of the things. But I just wanted to give you guys this week permission to rest. I love you guys, and I hope you have a lovely week.